Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through the sources, connect the dots, and bring you, our listener, a clear understanding of complex subjects.
And today, we're really diving deep into a life that was both incredibly vibrant and tragically short. We're talking about Heath Andrew Ledger.
Yeah, an actor whose career just exploded, really.
Yeah.
Less than a decade from, being seen maybe as a teen heartthrob to, well, a true artistic force. His death at 28 was just a shock worldwide.
Absolutely. And our goal here, our mission for you, is to get past those headlines. We've got the sources, and we want to unpack his artistic thinking, his philosophy.
And also look at things that often get missed, right? Like his ambitions to direct. He was serious about that.
Very serious. And we'll also need to touch on the more difficult parts, the complexities around his final years, his struggles, and of course his lasting legacy.
So this isn't just a timeline of roles. We're looking at the blueprint, you could say.
Yeah.
It's a story about constantly seeking variety, refusing to repeat himself.
A deep, deep commitment to the craft. I mean, the comparisons people made to acting legends weren't thrown around lightly.
No, definitely not. But it's also about that difficult intersection, isn't it? Where immense professional success met some profound personal challenges.
Exactly. So let's start unpacking that journey. Where else but right at the beginning in Western Australia?
Okay, so Heath Ledger, born 1979, Perth, Western Australia. To really get a handle on his drive, it helps to understand where he came from.
Right. And it seems like a pretty solid background. His dad, Kim Ledger, was involved in racing cars, mining engineering. His mom, Sally Ramshaw, taught French. It doesn't sound like, a typically chaotic Star-is-Born backstory.
No, quite grounded. And the family name Ledger actually carried some weight in Perth.
Yeah, apparently so. There was a connection to a prominent foundry and this Sir Frank Ledger Charitable Trust, named after his great-grandfather. So it suggests a certain level of, well, discipline maybe, an achieving environment.
Which might explain some of that later professional intensity we saw.
Possibly. And you see hints of that creative focus really early on. He went to Guildford Grammar School, and at 10 years old, he's starring as Peter Pan in a school play.
10 years old.
Yeah.
So the acting bug bit early. It wasn't just a phase.
Seems like it really took hold. And what's also interesting and often gets overlooked is his early knack for choreography and creative leadership.
Right, the Gene Kelly influence. He was a huge fan.
A huge fan. And that led to something quite remarkable for a school kid choreographing this massive all-boy dance team for the Rock Eisteddfod Challenge.
60 kids in the team. That's amazing.
Yeah, and they won. Apparently, it was the school's first all-boy victory. It tells you something, doesn't it? He wasn't just interested in being in the spotlight. He was interested in creating the performance, the structure.
Discipline again. And that drive, well, it impacted his schooling directly.
It really did. He decided to leave school early, took his graduation exams at 16, specifically so he could pursue acting full-time.
That's a bold move at 16. A real statement like, okay, this is what I'm doing now.
Exactly. No more messing around, time to work. And the next step was logical. Sydney.
He drove across the country, didn't he?
Yeah.
From Perth, with his childhood best friend, Trevor DiCarlo, just packed up and went for it. That signals real focus.
Total focus. And he started building that resume pretty quickly in Australian TV. Some early small parts, like his very first role was apparently an uncredited bit as an orphan clown in a TV movie called Clowning Around back in 91.
An orphan clown. Okay.
Yeah. Then shows like Ship to Shore in 93, but a key one was Sweat in 1996, where he played a cyclist. That got him more notice. He even did a stint on Home and Away.
Which is almost a rite of passage for young Aussie actors, isn't it?
Pretty much. Gives you that visibility. And then another show, Roll. But by 1998, he felt like he'd done what he could in Australia.
So the U.S. beckoned, and his big American introduction came pretty fast, 1999, with 10 Things I Hate About You.
Right. The teen comedy. That gave him that immediate commercial foothold in Hollywood. You need that sometimes.
But crucially, and this shows the pattern early on, that same year, in 1999, he wasn't just doing the teen movie.
No, exactly. He was also starring back in Australia in a much grittier film, Two Hands. Critically acclaimed crime film, directed by Gregor Jordan.
So right from the start, you see the strategy. Use the commercial project to get noticed, then immediately pivot to something serious, something challenging.
He was already setting the stage for this transformation, but probably not in the way Hollywood expected, not just bigger movies, but different movies.
And the early 2000s really cemented that pattern. He built this filmography that was just all over the place, genre-wise. Deliberately so, it seems.
Totally deliberate. You had him in The Patriot, right? Huge Mel Gibson, historical, epic supporting role, but very visible.
Yeah, playing Gibson's son, Gabriel Martin.
But then almost immediately after, he does Monsters Ball in 2001, a really intense supporting dramatic role as Sonny Grotowski.
That's a stark contrast and a powerful early sign of that philosophy we talked about.
Exactly. Use the big movie attention to get the part in the serious, heavy-hitting drama. And people noticed that range early. He won that Showist Award in 2001, Male Star of Tomorrow.
And he just kept balancing things, didn't he? You get this sort of medieval romp, A Knight's Tale,
Which was huge fun, but still different.
followed by historical dramas like The Four Feathers, then lighter stuff like Casanova, The Brothers Grimm. He just refused to be pinned down.
Absolutely refused. But you get the feeling all this variety, this jumping around, was maybe building towards something, like preparation.
Preparation for what became the defining role, really, Ennis Del Mar in Ang Lee's Brokeback Mountain in 2005.
Yeah, that performance. It changed everything. Playing that conflicted Wyoming ranch hand, it earned him nominations for pretty much every major award. BAFTA, SAG, Golden Globes, and the big one, the Oscar for Best Actor.
And he was only 26, the 8th youngest nominee ever in that category. That's incredible.
It is, and this is where we need to pause and really analyze the reaction, because it wasn't just, oh, great performance. The critics went, well, ballistic.
They really did. The comparisons were immediate and, frankly, staggering.
Stratospheric is the word. Stephen Holden at the New York Times, listen to this quote, Ledger magically and mysteriously disappears beneath the skin of his lean, sinewy character. It is a great screen performance, as good as the best of Marlon Brando and Sean Penn.
Wow. Just stop there. Brando and Penn. At 26 years old, you have to wonder, does getting that kind of praise, that specific comparison, so young, does that create an almost unbearable internal pressure?
That's a really crucial question, isn't it? Does it box you in a way? Force you to only chase roles that feel that monumental, that transformative?
Yeah, because maybe good isn't good enough anymore. You're chasing the ghost of Brando. Could that intensity, that need to meet those expectations, contribute to later issues?
It's certainly plausible. He was suddenly operating on this incredibly high plane. Peter Travers at Rolling Stone kind of echoed that depth of commitment. He called the performance an acting miracle, saying Ledger seems to tear it from his insides.
Tear it from his insides. That implies a level of immersion, maybe even sacrifice, that's maybe not sustainable long-term for anyone.
Exactly. Travers went on, Ledger doesn't just know how Ennis moves, speaks, and listens. He knows how he breathes. That's digging deep. Really deep.
And he clearly used that newfound critical cachet, that power, to keep choosing complex, demanding roles. He didn't suddenly go for easy paychecks.
Not at all. Look what came after Brokeback. In 2006, he does Candy, playing a poet, Dan, who's struggling with heroin addiction. Earned him more Best Actor nominations in Australia.
Another intense, difficult character study.
And then in 2007, Todd Haynes' experimental film, I'm Not There, playing Robbie Clark, one of 6 different actors embodying facets of Bob Dylan.
Alongside people like Christian Bale, Cate Blanchett. He wasn't the star, he was part of this complex ensemble.
Right. It showed he was willing to be like a piece in a larger artistic puzzle, no ego about being the lead, just serving the concept.
Which brings us back to that core idea, his driving philosophy, the absolute refusal to repeat himself.
He said it explicitly, didn't he? Something like, he felt he was wasting my time if I repeat myself. Variety wasn't just a choice. It was like his mission statement.
And the way he approached the work itself was, well, unique. Not just about technique or finding motivation in the usual sense.
No, he talked about something more profound, almost spiritual, harnessing the infinite power of belief. He actually compared acting to revivalist preachers.
Yeah, that analogy is so striking. He talked about preachers in the South grabbing someone and shouting, I touch you with the hand of God. And he said, that's the power of belief.
And then he connected it to acting, saying something like, I don't believe in Jesus, but I believe in my performance.
It's like he saw acting as this act of pure will, imposing belief onto the scene, onto the audience. Less about psychology, more about sheer conviction.
And directors saw that. They recognized this wasn't just an actor hitting his marks. Christopher Nolan, who obviously directed him later in The Dark Knight, talked about Ledger's charisma, his curiosity. Nolan said he felt as old as I did watching Heath explore his talents, like he was witnessing something ancient, primal, maybe.
Mark Forster, who directed him way back in Monsters Ball, said similar things. Complimented his seriousness, his intuition, Said he was observant, disciplined.
Yeah, it seems like he was always searching, right? Searching for the absolute core truth of whatever character, whatever scene he was in, no matter how big or small the role.
Okay, but it's really important we stress this next part because it reframes how we see his career. Acting, for Heath Ledger, wasn't necessarily the final goal.
No, it seems like it was becoming a means to another end. He was seriously moving towards becoming a film director. He even had his own production company called The Masses.
And this wasn't just talk, right? He was actually directing things.
Yeah, primarily music videos initially, focusing on creating strong visual stories for music he connected with. He did work for Enfa, an Australian hip-hop artist. Videos like Cause and Effect and Seduction is Evil, She's Hot.
So he's getting his hands dirty, learning the craft.
Absolutely. And he formed a significant partnership with the musician Ben Harper. They actually launched a record label together, The Masses Music.
Wow, okay. So he's involved in the music side too.
And he directed the music video for Ben Harper's song Morning Yearning. It shows this holistic interest, doesn't it? The visual, the musical, even the business side of creativity.
Definitely paints a broader picture of his ambitions.
But maybe the most poignant and telling directorial project he was pursuing was centered on the British singer-songwriter Nick Drake.
Yeah, Nick Drake. Such a tragic figure himself, died incredibly young, overdose. His music often dealt with depression.
Exactly. Drake died in 1974, age 26, from an antidepressant overdose, and Ledger was deeply invested in making a documentary about his life and work.
The parallels there are, well, heartbreaking looking back.
They really are. And Ledger didn't just plan it, he actually made a short film, a music video, set to one of Drake's most intense songs about depression, Black-Eyed Dog.
Black-Eyed Dog. Wasn't that title drawn from Winston Churchill's phrase for his own depression, the black dog?
That's the one. And Ledger created and starred in this short film. Apparently, it was a very raw, personal piece. It was only shown publicly a couple of times before he died.
Wow. So he's channeling his artistic energy into exploring these really dark, difficult themes through directing. It shows that intensity wasn't just for the acting roles.
No, it seems like it was part of a much deeper personal exploration using all the creative tools he had.
And his ambitions went beyond shorts and documentaries. He had his sights set on a feature film.
Yeah, a really significant one. He was actively working with Alan Scott, a Scottish screenwriter and producer, to adapt Walter Tevis's 1983 novel, The Queen's Gambit.
The Queen's Gambit, which obviously became huge later as a Netflix series. But Ledger wanted to direct it as his first feature film.
That was the plan. The story of this brilliant female chess prodigy grappling with addiction. You can see why it would appeal to him, thematically.
And he even had someone in mind for the lead role.
He did. He'd proposed Elliot Page, the Canadian actor. So this wasn't just a vague dream. It was a concrete project with a producer, a potential star attached. It shows a serious strategic move towards a directing career.
It really underscores what might have been, doesn't it? The potential that was lost. He could have become a major director. So alongside this incredibly driven artistic life, there was this other side. The turbulence of his public life, his relationship with fame.
Yeah, and for someone who seemed inherently private, dedicated to the work, that aspect must have been difficult. Especially the Australian press, that relationship seemed particularly fraught.
So much so that he apparently gave up on plans to live part-time back in Sydney.
That's what the sources suggest. The conflicts were pretty constant and sometimes quite nasty. There were reports back in 2004 during the filming of Candy about him or his family allegedly spitting at journalists, which he strongly denied.
And then that incident in 2006 at the Brokeback Mountain premiere in Sydney.
Right, where paparazzi actually squirted him and Michelle Williams with water pistols. It sounds like there is real antagonism there, constant friction.
And sometimes even his own behavior, likely stemming from nerves, got misinterpreted, right? Like at the SAG Awards in 2005.
Ah, yeah, the giggle. When he was presenting Brokeback Mountain as a nominee, he kind of chuckled or giggled, and the LA Times initially ran with this idea that it was some kind of apparent gay spoof.
Which sounds completely unlike him, based on everything else we know.
Exactly. And he was apparently horrified. He called the paper straight away to apologize, explaining it was purely stage fright. He said he'd be absolutely horrified if anyone thought he was being disrespectful to the film or its themes.
It shows how hard it must have been trying to be sincere in a world that often looks for controversy.
Definitely. But he wasn't afraid to speak out when he felt strongly about something. Like when those cinemas in Utah banned Brokeback Mountain.
What did he say about that?
He didn't hold back. Said something like, I don't think the movie is controversial, but I think Maybe the Mormons in Utah do. I think it's hilarious and very immature of a society. He saw the bigger picture.
Okay, so stepping away from the media glare,
Hmm.
what about the private man? What grounded him?
Well, chess was a big thing for him. He'd played competitively when he was younger, and apparently he loved playing games in Washington Square Park in Manhattan, just seeking out opponents.
A focused, quiet pursuit. Makes sense.
And photography, too. But not just taking photos. He was described as an obsessive photographer who would then, draw or paint over the stills, use nail polish markers.
Interesting. Another creative outlet, but maybe more personal, less pressure.
Perhaps little ways to channel that creative energy away from the massive scale of film production.
And then, of course, the most significant personal relationship was with Michelle Williams.
Yeah, they met making Brokeback Mountain, started dating in 2004, and were together until September 2007.
And their daughter, Matilda Rose Ledger, was born in October 2005.
Right, born in New York. And the bonds from that film ran deep, dope. Jake Gyllenhaal, their co-star, and Busy Phillips, Williams' close friend, became Matilda's godparents.
Okay, so this is where the narrative takes a darker turn. We have to talk about the intersection of his intense work life and his health. Specifically, the insomnia.
Yes, this seems crucial. He struggled terribly with insomnia, and he himself often linked it directly to the roles he was playing, finding it hard to switch off, to detach.
And the preparation for the Joker in The Dark Knight seems to have really exacerbated this.
And it really seems so. There's that stark interview he gave to the New York Times, published late 2007. He was incredibly candid.
What did he say?
He said, "Last week I probably slept an average of 2 hours a night. I couldn't stop thinking. My body was exhausted and my mind was still going. Just relentless mental activity."
2 hours a night. That's unsustainable. Did he mention trying medication?
He did. He mentioned taking 2 Ambien pills, but said they didn't really work. They'd just leave him in a stupor and he'd wake up an hour later anyway, his mind still racing.
Wow. And people around him noticed this struggle right up to the end.
Absolutely. Christopher Plummer, who was working with him on his very last film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, talked about it. Plummer said Ledger seemed physically unwell, thought maybe he had walking pneumonia, and was constantly saying he couldn't sleep, taking pills to try and help.
Damn it, I can't sleep. Just sounds desperate.
It does. And Michelle Williams later confirmed this wasn't a new thing. She told Interview magazine that for as long as she'd known him, he had these bouts with insomnia. Why? Because, as she put it, his mind was turning, always turning.
That's just heartbreaking. The very thing that made him such a compelling actor, that intense focus, that constantly turning mind, was also, it seems, what was driving him towards this physical crisis.
It appears that way. A tragic paradox.
Which leads us, inevitably, to January 22, 2008.
Yes. Tuesday afternoon around 3 p.m., Heath Ledger was found unresponsive in his loft apartment in Soho, Manhattan.
We found him.
His housekeeper, Teresa Solomon, and a massage therapist, Diana Lozin, who had arrived for an appointment.
And the sequence of events right after that is unsettling.
It is. The masseuse, finding him unresponsive, apparently first called Mary Kate Olsen, a friend of Ledger's, who was in California, multiple times over several minutes before she called 911.
Why Olsen? Did they ever explain that?
The details remain a bit unclear, but the delay in calling emergency services was noted. Paramedics arrived quickly after the 911 call, but unfortunately they couldn't revive him. He was pronounced dead at the scene. He was 28.
Just devastating.
Yeah.
And the official cause of death.
The NYC Office of Chief Medical Examiner ruled it an accidental death caused by acute intoxication poisoning from the combined effects of multiple prescription drugs. Abuse of prescribed medications, essentially.
So not an overdose of one specific drug, but the combination?
Exactly. A lethal combination that shut down his body's systems, particularly his breathing.
Do we know what drugs were involved?
Yes. The toxicology report identified 6 specific prescription medications. It's important to understand the types. There were 2 strong opioid painkillers, oxycodone and hydrocodone.
Okay.
Then 2 types of benzodiazepines, which are sedatives often used for anxiety. Diazepam, which is Valium, and alprazolam, which is Xanax.
Right, so opioids and benzos. That's known to be a dangerous mix.
Extremely dangerous. They both depress the central nervous system. Taken together, their effects multiply, severely slowing down automatic functions like breathing.
What were the other 2 drugs?
One was temazepam, another benzodiazepine derivative often prescribed specifically as a hypnotic for sleep. And the last was doxylamine, which is actually an antihistamine but has strong sedative effects and is often found in over-the-counter sleep aids.
So a complex cocktail of sedating drugs, Painkillers, anti-anxiety meds, sleep aids, all working together to depress his system.
Tragically, yes, that combination proved fatal.
Was there an investigation into where these drugs came from, particularly the opioids?
There was. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, conducted a federal investigation. They looked into prescriptions written by physicians who had treated Ledger.
And what did they find?
They ultimately cleared 2 specific doctors, one in LA, one in Houston, of any wrongdoing. They concluded that while these doctors had prescribed Ledger other medications, they hadn't prescribed the specific pills, particularly the opioids, that caused his death.
So the source of the oxycodone and hydrocodone remained unknown.
Essentially, yes. Mary Kate Olsen, through her lawyer, denied supplying him with any drugs. The investigation eventually closed without filing any charges, leaving that crucial question unanswered.
So at the time of his death, the world was essentially waiting for these 2 final performances to be released. The first, obviously, was his role as the Joker in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, he'd finished filming that back in October 2007. Christopher Nolan, the director, dedicated the film partly to his memory. It was clear Nolan knew he'd captured something extraordinary.
And Ledger himself had described the character in such stark terms. Psychopathic, mass-murdering, schizophrenic clown with zero empathy. He knew what he was diving into.
He absolutely did. And the reaction when the film came out in 2008 was just overwhelming. It wasn't just praise. It felt like a cultural moment. It completely changed how people thought about villains in superhero films.
David Denby at The New Yorker called it sinister and frightening, mesmerizing in every scene. He said it was a heroic, unsettling final act. This young actor looked into the abyss. Powerful stuff.
Incredibly powerful. The second film, though, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, presented a huge challenge because he hadn't finished filming his part.
Right, he'd only done about half his work as the character Tony. How did they even salvage that?
Well, the director, Terry Gilliam, who is also a friend of Ledger's, came up with a really ingenious and quite beautiful solution. He didn't want to use CGI or just recast. He wanted to honor the performance.
So what did he do?
He used the film's own magical premise. The character Tony travels through this magic mirror, the Imaginarium, into fantasy worlds. Gilliam decided that within those fantasy worlds, Tony's appearance could change.
Ah, okay, so that allowed other actors to step in.
Exactly. 3 actors, all reportedly close friends of Ledger, agreed to play these fantasy transformations of Tony. Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell.
Wow. That's quite a lineup.
Yeah.
And it fits the surreal nature of a Gilliam film.
Perfectly. And what makes it even more touching is what those 3 actors did.
What was that?
They all donated their entire salaries from the film to Heath's daughter, Matilda Rose.
Really? That's incredible. Such a testament to the respect and affection they had for him.
Absolutely. A gesture of true solidarity, ensuring his family was supported.
Which brings us to the awards season following his death. The recognition for the Joker performance was just unprecedented for a posthumous role, wasn't it?
It truly was. He became only the 2nd person ever to win an acting Oscar after their death. Peter Finch was the first. Ledger won Best Supporting Actor for The Dark Knight.
His family accepted the award, right? A very emotional moment.
Incredibly emotional. And it wasn't just the Oscars, it was a clean sweep. Golden Globe, BAFTA, Screen Actors Guild Award, Critics' Choice, all for Best Supporting Actor. The industry universally acknowledged the power of that performance.
Now, what about his estate? Was that complicated by his death?
There was a potential complication because his will, written back in 2003, predated his relationship with Michelle Williams and the birth of Matilda, so legally it didn't include them.
Oh, right. How was that resolved?
Well, his father, Kim Ledger, acted very quickly and very publicly. He made it absolutely clear that ensuring the financial well-being of Matilda Rose was their absolute priority.
So the family stepped up.
Completely. The final resolution was that the entire estate, valued around US $16.3 million at the time, was designated for Matilda to be held in trust for her until she turned 18, which was in 2023.
And that trust also included his Oscar statue.
Yes, control of the statuette went into the trust for her as well. A clear statement of ensuring his legacy went to his daughter.
Beyond the official legacy, the tributes from peers and the cultural impact continued for years, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. Daniel Day-Lewis dedicated his SAG Award win that year to Ledger, calling his work unique, perfect. Vern Troyer, who worked with him on Parnassus, got a tattoo of a heart symbol that Ledger used to draw, just because he'd made such an impression. Little personal tributes like that.
And in music, too.
Yeah, the Australian band Eskimo Joe wrote their song Foreign Land specifically about him. And apparently, even Bon Iver's song Perth was inspired by stories Justin Vernon heard about Ledger while visiting the city after his death. His absence resonated culturally.
And finally, back in his hometown, Perth gave him a lasting physical tribute.
They did. The State Theatre Centre of Western Australia named its main 575-seat venue the Heath Ledger Theatre. For the opening, they displayed his Oscar and his Joker costume, a permanent reminder in the place where it all began.
All these threads together, try to synthesize this deep dive.
Yeah.
What's the lasting impression? What's the core takeaway?
For me, it's that profound, almost tragic paradox at the heart of his career. Here's an actor who lived by the philosophy of never repeat myself, who craved variety above all else.
Yeah.
And yet, his most iconic enduring legacies are tied to two incredibly intense, specific, and demanding roles, Ennis Delmar and the Joker. Roles that required him to go to those deep, perhaps dangerous places.
It's true. The variety got him noticed, but the intensity cemented his legend.
And the other tragedy, really, is the sheer scope of what was lost beyond acting. His serious move into directing the Nick Drake project, exploring depression, planning the Queen's Gambit, this wasn't someone winding down.
No, it felt like he was just gearing up for a whole new creative chapter, transforming again.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe ponder.
Okay, what's that?
Knowing his passion for directing, his proven ability to lead creative projects, even going back to that school dance team, and his commitment to finding truth behind the camera. If his life hadn't been cut so short, is it possible that today we might remember Heath Ledger not just as a legendary actor, but perhaps primarily as a groundbreaking director?
Someone who brought that same intensity, that same power of belief he talked about to his own film.
Precisely. Would his directing career have eventually overshadowed his acting? We'll obviously never know. But that unrealized potential, that question mark over what could have been, that's a huge part of his complex legacy.
A powerful question to leave things on, reflecting not just on the incredible work he did give us, but also on the immense creativity that was still waiting to emerge.
Definitely something to think about. The intensity, the commitment, the struggle, and the art, it's all interwoven in his story.